Hi everyone. I'm just getting set up with the other phone for TikTok and the iPad so I can see for the chat. All right, so I should be able to see everything now. Tonight I am finally sewing up the Stuffy Ball. If you've been joining me the last few times, I talked about how my nieces, I had made them basically like a beanbag that you could zip open, and they put all their stuffed animals inside, and they have so many stuffed animals that they now need a second one. So hi Lucy, how are you doing? So my plan tonight is I'm sewing up the Stuffy Ball. It is a pattern from Ellie and Mac. I have it linked in the description. It is an affiliate link. And I have cut out 3 different styles of Minky. Hi Arnetta. Thanks for both of you for coming back. I appreciate it. How are you doing tonight? So here I have 3 different styles of Minky. This is one from, it's Shannon Fabrics is the brand, it's Cuddle. This is from the group Sew Girlie Fun. She has a bunch of Minky, which I'll add to the description later too. And then these 2 here are from Joanne. I'm not sure, I forgot the name of this one, but this is like, it's a little bit stretchy and it's extra fluffy. I've made blankets backing it with this for my nieces. I've never had a problem with it as far as quality or anything. And then the same thing with like this Minky here. It has a little bit less of a loft. And this one's also from Joann's. It's a fun pattern. I did it the first time a couple of years ago. Probably like 3 years ago, and so now another one's needed, so we're gonna try it again. Oh no, 3 hours. I'm awful on no sleep. I hope you get some sleep tonight. Hi Dalva, how are you doing? Okay, and so what I'm doing first is I'm just taking my hand and like running it to make sure I want all my Minky to be like facing the correct direction. So I'm just going to make sure it's all going in one direction first before I start any sewing. Let me know in the comments if you guys have ever worked with Minky or like Shannon Cuddle fabric, any of this really faux fur. I love it, but it can be very difficult to work with. I actually found that, especially if I'm making blankets, using my serger works really well. But I wanted to use my sewing machine for 2 reasons. 1, to show you that it can be done. And 2, because like not everybody has a serger. But I do think it can sometimes make it easier. That, and I have to test how it is using a serger on a live because it's kind of loud, or at least my serger is loud. So we'll see. I'm gonna give it a test run at some point, and maybe I'll do some work on it if it comes out okay. This one, Dava, the like leopard print. This one's from Shannon Fabrics. I ordered it from Susie at Sew Girlie Fun. She has a section of Minky on her website. Okay, and so how I plan to make this is it requires 6 panels going around the base, and so some people clip it all at once. I'm just going to clip one at a time because you're not sewing all the way across. It wants you to leave about a 1/4 inch on each side. So I'm just going to do one at a time to keep everything organized. Dava, that's so funny. So the serger that I use is just it's a basic Brother, the 1034D. I got it at Walmart, I think, or DX. I don't know. It's one of those. But I got it at Walmart for $199, and it works great. It sat in the box for a while because I was super intimidated to learn to thread it. But I just searched and found a video, and so now if I need a reminder, I just watch the video. And I don't mess with any settings. Like, I found where the settings work really well, and I only turn, I don't even know the name of the dial, for like if I'm using stretchy or not stretchy fabric. That's like the only thing I change. I don't mess with the tension, none of it. And if it gets misaligned, I'm not sure if I know how to fix it like with the sewing machine. Hi, Nicole. Yeah, I bought the serger because I was like, oh, I want to make clothes for myself. But I realized that I really need to either find some really good YouTube videos or take some classes to learn how to make adjustments. So I've made some dresses and stuff for my nieces and some shirts. And they've come out great, but you know, they're kids, so there's not quite as many adjustments needed. And I'm like atrocious at hemming and stuff, but I just fold it under and usually use a zigzag stitch. I did get a twin needle, but for some reason the twin needle like bunches up the fabric a lot, so I've just been hemming with a zigzag on this machine. Oh, that's smart. It is really great at compressing foam or anything that's like thick along the edges. It's kind of one of the reasons that I like it for the Minky as well. Also, when I was cutting this, one of the things that I learned with sewing with Minky, as I cut it on my cutting mat, I had like one of those little handheld vacuums, and I sucked all the way around the edges to get all the loose fabric, because otherwise it would have looked like I killed a Muppet or something in the living room the other night. So I'm just sewing all 6 sides around this top base to start. Oh, Arnett. So when you make the baby quilts, are you using it with cotton, or are you using like the softer Minky or other materials? I've definitely found that the serger on blankets has been like a game changer for me. And I think that if you do have one, I see in a lot of groups that people don't like sewing with Minky. I think that if they used a serger, it might work out better for them if they have that available. Lucy, thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna look into that. I would love to learn. My meme, which would be, it's like French Canadian for, she was technically my great grandma, was an amazing seamstress. She was taught by like a tailor. She did everybody's clothes. But I never learned to sew from her. I guess I just wasn't interested at the time, like being younger or whatnot. But yeah, so like my mom would be like, oh, can you hem this? And I'm like, nope, sorry. So I would definitely love to learn like the official techniques for clothes making. Oh, quilt cotton with the serger. I'm gonna have to try it with quilt cotton. I don't really use my serger much at all, I don't think, for quilt cotton. And then the other thing that's helpful with this pattern is it does have a very large seam allowance. And I find that that really helps for the Minky not shifting quite so much. And I'm just trying to look and pay attention because I have 3 different types of fabrics, so 3 different patterns. So I want to make sure that I am alternating them as I'm going around. It's funny because making bags, I know that a lot of people come from either the quilting world into bag making or like the clothing world into bag making, but because I'm completely self-taught, that I found that bag making was almost easier to start with for myself, like being self-taught, because there are some things that have to be like really precise with gussets or if you're doing like a drop-in lining, but other things I found were like really forgiving and you could hide a lot on the inside, where I feel like sometimes with clothes it's not so forgiving unless you're using like a stretchy fabric, but even then. I'm gonna look into them, Lucy. Thank you so much for sharing that. What I would love to, like living here in New York City, it's everything is fashion. Like even if you go down to, you know, the garment district, there are some bag making supplies. Not a whole bunch of stores. I haven't been down in a couple years. I do want to go check them out. But we do have resources here like with Mood and stuff, and Mood just opened a like sewing studio in New Jersey where they're offering classes, and I would think that would be really cool to take some from them like in person. Yeah, Arnetta, clothes to quilts to bags. Yeah, it's so funny. I love hearing everyone's journey, basically, you know, like how they came through to the different things. And I really like switching between, like you've heard me talk about, you know, quilting. I like doing that as a break from bags. I like switching it up and doing a whole bunch of different styles, I guess you could say. And this pattern is like super forgiving too, that the seams, like if the Minky, like here you can see that my seam allowance did not stay the exact amount, but you're not even going to notice it. Like when I flip it, you can't tell. And that's another reason why this fabric won't fray, but if you are making this with woven, why they recommend using the serger on the edges just so that they don't fray on you. Yeah, I really like Ellie and Mac for my niece's clothes. They seem to have been really accurate as far as for kids and stuff. I did try to make myself a shirt, which I definitely need to learn, like the adjustments, like the full bust adjustment and such. And I have made Jason a couple shirts or tank tops that he really likes. And I feel like as a very beginner clothing maker, The instructions are easy to follow and oftentimes have videos. So Dava, the hours are going okay. I need a little bit more now. I think it's like 247 hours. I had last October I had 2 videos. The Hugo handbag that is a bat, and a Batwing wallet by Britalicious. And so those hours are starting to fall off. So on some days my hours go up, and then on other days it's been going down this week. So I think it's, as of today, it's 247 hours away. But I'm hoping that with this live tonight and then this weekend we have another sewing marathon for the Greedy Clutch wallet, that the hours will help bump up. You know, Lucy, it's true. People have said that it is really easy. I think once I understand grading and like the science behind the adjustments, it will make a lot more sense to me. There's so many layers here right now coming together. I'm just like double checking to make sure I'm clipping the right way. I sewed that one with the Shannon Minky, the leopard print, right side facing up, and that was really helpful. Depending on which one, each of these are a little bit more stretchy than the other. So depending, I've been putting the more stretchy one on the bottom to get caught by the feed dogs. And another thing this week, I've mentioned it in the last few lives that we've done, that I'll be teaching at Mojo Sews next month. So she actually released all the classes and the dates. It's November 8th to 10th. It's Veterans Day weekend. So all the classes are listed if you are in the Pennsylvania area or within driving distance and interested in that. I'm gonna link her website in the description too. I think it should be mojosews.com, I think. Or if it's not sews, it's sew, S-E-W. But I'm super excited. I'm gonna be teaching the willow wristlet on the Sunday. Alright, so this was should be my last side. So I'm just turning it right side out so you can see, and I'm double checking to make sure that I caught all my stitches. I've started making that a habit. I can't tell you how many times I don't double check and then I realize that something slipped and I didn't catch it. Oh, so Lucy, I did buy a projector, but it's not a short throw. So I'm going to have to either like mount it to the ceiling or figure out like a temporary mount. My biggest problem, it's not really a problem, but my biggest thing is that when I cut out patterns, I usually sit on the floor and do it, and I sit in my living room and put my cutting mat in front of me and just like have everything laid out in a circle. So I have to kind of figure out a spot for it and then learn how to adjust it. I did join the projectors for sewists groups, and there's a ton of helpful information in there. I just need to like put more time into really learning it. Thanks, Dad. So in the meantime of my nieces waiting for me to sew this, my dad was enlisted in hanging up those like hammocks for stuffed animals. But I visited my family this weekend and I was laughing. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you guys have the hammocks full, and I guess you really do need this one. So I'm excited to finally cut this out. I'm sure my mom will be happy too. Oh yeah, Lucy, that's great. I've heard that even with bag making, I've heard that projectors are really helpful, and I don't know how to make a projector pattern in the sense of where there's like different like shades, like a light, dark, and dark mode. But in my own patterns, I do include an A0 copy that I know some people use with projectors, or they can send it to the print shop and have everything printed out. Oh, that's great. Lucy, I'm going to have to write down all these suggestions. I'm going to go back later. Thank you so much. I love learning about new resources and videos to watch. I love like watching and listening to YouTube videos when I'm sewing, just working on something that if I don't really need to focus on the directions or whatnot, something that I'm really comfortable with. So what I'm doing now is I'm just repeating the same exact step as the other side, just attaching the other end, and then we'll sew those long sides. I'm just trying to be really mindful that I sew this in the exact same order, that I don't twist up any of these edges, which is so easy to do since there's so many of them. What was nice too is that the leopard Shannon I had a full yard of, but all these other fabrics were just like left over from other blankets that I've made, like toddler toppers and whatnot. So this is a great project. I mean, the pieces are very big, but I was still able to use like scrap fabric. If you're sewing tonight, are you, let me know what projects you guys are working on. I As far as bags, I really love Lynn's Handmade new bag that she debuted, the Saya Sidekick. I definitely want to get that one when it releases this week. And I'm not sure if any of you followed me from like the Cotton Cuts group with the quilting there. In November, I think it's either the 1st or 2nd, whatever day that Friday is, our Tree of Life quilt is going to be revealed. So I'll be on Cotton Cuts live with them revealing my Moonlit colorway. So on my channel, if you've seen me sewing up the gray quilt, that was part of what I was working on last week. That will be all finished, or the quilt top, I should say, will be finished next week. I'm just stretching this out, making sure again that I'm catching everything. Oh, that's great. Knitting his pair of socks. I bet they're so warm. It's starting to get, in New York today, it was like 80 degrees. It was so beautiful. But then we get those days, it keeps dropping down. So it's definitely the time for the warm socks. I'm like covered in all the little fuzzies from the fabric. Like I said in the beginning, I vacuumed the edges. That it definitely helped. I usually keep a lint roller, especially if I'm at the end. And then these seams are all going to be inside of the Stuffy Ball, so they're not going to be seen. So I'm not going to trim them down. If I trim them down, I'm just going to have like a cloud of furry fabric. Which I guess is another reason why the serger is nice, because it will encase the edges for you and kind of trim that fabric. You don't get quite as much. Dala, that's funny. Dalva, have you been making more delicious bread? Oh, Lucy, yeah. Thankfully, well, I don't know if it's thankfully, but I don't have any kids to get in the way. So thankfully, whenever I want to sew, I can just do it. I can only imagine. I know how busy my sister is with my nieces, so. I haven't made a math pack. I really enjoy the Purse Pal. I cut them on my Cricut machine, and it just makes it so easy. And I really enjoy the edge painting of it. I feel like it's like kind of relaxing. I really appreciate you all tuning in again joining me on another Tuesday night. I know I say it every time, but I really look forward to it. It's a nice way to end the night, or at least on the East Coast. If you're in West Coast, I guess you still got quite a few more hours. Oh yeah, Lucy, that's good though. You can leave like that is nice, at least with leather and vinyl, that you could leave the edges raw. I did that for my first couple, and then I bought some like the Giardini base and top coat and the Angelus paints. And now once that ran out, or I haven't run out of the top coat yet, but the base coat, I started getting Mojo Sews, and I really enjoy the process. But I don't sand between any of my layers of the edge paint and base coat and stuff like that. I feel like every time I sand them, I take off more than I'm supposed to. Which I'm kind of excited about, because at Mojo Sews next month, Michelle is going to be teaching like an edge painting class. So I'm really excited because I'll learn from her, and hopefully maybe I'll learn a new technique with the sanding and actually get it done correctly. Delva. Yeah, it can be really messy. I use like I really should get one of those helping hands that Michelle carries if she has them in stock while I'm there too. I usually take like just from the dollar store. They have these little, they're like the red Solo cups, but they're like for shots or something. They're super small, and I literally just tip them upside down and balance my stuff on top of it. I started when I was doing like Cricut stuff. That's what I would use for when I was making ornaments, and I would use them to hold. Hi, Krista. You're not late. Never too late. I'm so glad you could join us. It's starting to get pretty heavy. I think that's another thing I like about Minky. I have the puff quilt pillow that's being tested right now, but I made a whole blanket out of it, and I backed it with Minky, and just like, I like really heavy blankets, and that Minky with the puffs was just like perfect for me. Alright, so hopefully none of these are twisted. I just saw where I didn't snip my thread. It's so easy, it blends in. So I'm just gonna kind of hold these up, make sure that none of them are twisted. I might have to pull it off to the side. And then I'm going to start sewing up the long edges between it, but I'm going to leave one of them open. I think I'm going to leave it between this leopard print and the dots one because these have the least amount of stretch. And I'm going to put a zipper in so that way they can open it up and access it. Yeah, on the quilts, like, so when I was younger, I was like, I hate quilts. Because when I thought of quilts, I only thought of like 2 layers of quilting cotton, which I think is like gorgeous, but is not my ideal to actually like use as a blanket. So for quilts that I like want to actually use, I'm 100% a big fan of minky, flannel, anything something like soft. Alright, and I just pulled it off to the side real quick just to double check that I'm not having anything twisted. I don't believe there is. Alright. So now I'm just going to start sewing up these long edges here. And hopefully they just easily align. I'm hoping that they don't stretch on me too much. I'm going to be extra mindful as I'm clipping it along. Where do you get Fireside? I've not heard of that one. I'm gonna have to check that out. And yeah, I can only imagine Canadian winters. I feel like it gets cold enough here in New York or Connecticut. I can't even imagine further up. Oh, that's you. For perfect. The flannel and light batting. Yeah. And those Florida ACs, you know they're ice cold. Krista, were you okay with the last 2 hurricanes going through? I'm not sure what part of Florida you're in. I'm definitely gonna look, Nicole, because now I'm intrigued. I wanna see what that is. Alright, we're gonna see how this one comes out, because this one is one of these minkies is a little bit longer, I think. Maybe if I put more clips. It wasn't clipping like right to the end, so alright, we'll see. Let's see if it comes out wrinkly or if I'm able to hide it into the seam allowance. And for all this so far, I'm just using my regular presser foot. I don't have a walking foot for this machine, but it seems to feed it through like pretty good. So as long as I put the more stretchy fabric on the bottom. Oh wow, Krista. Yeah, Crystal River. That's where all the manatees are. I went to college in St. Petersburg, and a lot of my friends are still like without water or power, and that side got walloped. I'm glad that you're both okay though. This one's shifted on me a little bit, but again, it's in the seam allowance, so I'm not worried about it. I think it's pretty forgiving, so. And it's also like sewing on this curve. Oh, Dava. Okay, I'll have to look. I've ordered from Fat Quarter Shop before. I'm gonna go on there and look after. Alright, so this is the seam that I just sewed between the two sides of that stuffy ball. So I'm just checking them now before I move on to the next one, because I want to be able to, if I don't catch something, I want to be able to fix it right away. I'm just taking my time clipping this. I'm trying not to stretch it at all as I'm sewing. Only because they're like on a, they're not cut on the stretchy part, like they're, you know, supposed to be cut on like the grain, but because they're curved, I feel like sometimes it can stretch a bit. And this actually comes in 2 different sizes. I'm sewing up a large size. So yeah, if you've joined later or you're catching on TikTok and you didn't hear, I'm sewing up, it's the Stuffy Ball pattern from Ellie and Mac. And I'm gonna put a zipper in it so that way my nieces can use it for their stuffed animals, but you could also make it, I think this would be cool as like a beanbag chair. If you had like scraps of fabric or whatnot, you could use that as stuffing. It would be a good way to not have waste, I guess. You could just sew it up permanently. I'm wearing this black shirt and I feel like I'm turning purple as I'm sewing. And because it's so fluffy at the end, I'm having trouble like seeing the seam line on my machine. So I actually have one of these magnetic seam guides that I just put on just to help me make sure that I'm not straying too far from that seam allowance. I used to use it a lot more, especially when I was learning to sew. It was a great tool. Krista, if you're still on, did you go to the Salty Sews weekend or to Sewcation this past weekend in Florida? I've been looking at everybody's pictures. Pretty full bobbin when I started this, but I've been pulling the strings really long, so hopefully it doesn't run out on me. And I'm using a large needle. I'm using a 9014, and I'm using the Tex 35 thread from Wizardry Stitchery. So I'm using like the same needle and thread that I would use for bag making. And again, I'm just checking down that seam here. All right. What's nice is as going along, it's becoming easier and easier because I don't have as many pieces flopping two different ways. Oh, that's so awesome, Krista. Oh yeah, you're welcome. I'm so like last minute with everything. I sent it down to Sarah like a week before the bags, or a week before the event. So it looks so awesome. I was talking to Sarah behind the scenes. We really wanted to try to make it down for either or both events, but it just wasn't possible, you know, especially with the other one being canceled this summer and stuff. But I'm really hoping that either Salty Sews does it again or Amanda does another Sewcation. Because I really just love seeing everybody in person. You can't beat that. It was funny. We were making the little goodie bags. Like Jason cut all the webbing one day for me, and then we had like an assembly line going and putting the different zipper pulls in and stuff. All right, Dad, have a good night. Love you. Tell Mom I'll call her when I'm done. I call my parents like every night to say goodnight. So my mom's just getting home from work. So I always tell Dad, like, tell Mom I'll call her when I'm done. This one I wasn't being mindful. I put the dots Minky towards the top. I should have switched it because it's a little bit more stretchy than the Shannon Minky. It's still going okay though. Talpa. Yeah. I got into the habit of it because I went to school in Florida and it was so far away from home, because I grew up in Connecticut, so it was expensive to fly home, so I only saw my parents when I was in college. I went home for the summer and then for Christmas break. So I really got into the habit of just like calling them constantly to talk to them, and my dad would write me letters and mail them to my college. So like even if I talked to him on the phone, he'd still write letters, so I'd get mail. It was cool. I usually talk to my sister too, if not every night, then like every other. Especially with my nieces now, it's been homework help. Check that one. I'm so excited, like seeing how it's coming together with all the Minkies. I think it looks so good. I'm so excited. I just hope the zipper, that's gonna be the hardest part, because I'm using a what is it called, a like a number 5 that doesn't have the stoppers on it, so I'm gonna have to make sure that I catch the edges and stuff. So hopefully that goes smoothly. Yeah, it could be Dava, or it could be like, I have a few friends that don't like call home as often as I do. This one I'm gonna have to be extra careful. There's some like gaps, like where it's a little bit bigger. So hopefully that gets hidden in nicely, or I can ease it in. So I'm not sure for next week what video or what I'm going to be working on. But I think I've been, I did the dragon face for a Hugo handbag a few weeks ago, maybe even like a month ago now. And I really, really want to finish that up for myself. So hoping that maybe this weekend I'll get the rest of that cut out. So I didn't know this about YouTube, but they have like a community tab where you could post like pictures and such. So once this is all stuffed up with my niece's stuffed animals, I'll have to take a picture to update you. I'll put it on my social media too, and like my Facebook group and stuff. I'll probably stuff it with some blankets when I'm done, just to be able to take a picture to show it off before I bring it to them. It's another thing that these are really good for. Extra blankets, storage, can become another seating Okay, perfect. There's been so many times where I've done a blanket and then I noticed that seam, like I didn't catch the seam, especially with this more fluffy type. So far so good. So this is the last, or second to last seam. This is the last seam that I'm sewing completely, and then I'm going to put the zipper into the very last one. And a lot of times when I'm sewing like big pieces like this, I'll usually lay it out on the floor to clip it so it's completely straight. But it hasn't been working out too bad doing it this way, so. I was worried that as I was clipping, it was going to stretch a lot more than what it's been doing. Sorry, on TikTok after so long, it's like, are you sure you want to keep streaming? This one I just need to double check. This one shifted a little bit more than the others have, so. All right. Yeah, so this one down here, like you can see that there's a big shift where it slipped, but this is one of the things I like, and sometimes this happens with bag making too, that like I'll flip this out and it's like you can't tell in that seam right there where it all comes together. This is that bottom panel. So sometimes like in groups I tell like new sewists, like don't get upset, like don't rip out your seams yet, like check it first. Because even if it shifts, it might still be perfectly fine. All right, so let me Okay, so all I have left is this last opening. So I'm gonna sew up. I specifically saved these two Minkies to do it. So I'm going to stitch maybe like 6 to 8 inches on each side from like the top and the bottom, and then I'm gonna put the zipper in the middle. And I'm gonna show you the zipper in a minute. I didn't pre-cut it or anything or pre-measure ahead of time. They do give you like a suggested length in the pattern. I am just going to measure it based on how big my opening is. And also in the pattern, the zipper that they're using is the one like for garments that has the like the stop on it on both the bottom and the top. I'm going to be using just zipper tape, so I'm just going to adjust it when I actually start putting it in. Okay, so I sewed one side a little bit together, so now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Yeah, Dalva, so I'm going to use zipper by the yard. This is my plan. We'll see how it comes out. I'm going to use zipper by the yard with no tabs and just leave like maybe like 1 inch or 2 at the bottom underneath. And so when I top stitch it, it will catch that bottom. That's what I did for the original one that I made, but I made it like 3 or 4 years ago. So I don't remember exactly what I did, so it'll be a learning experience. It might be, you know, this is what not to do, but hopefully it will work out in the way that I have envisioned it in my head. So here's my opening. It's, I would say probably almost 2 feet, definitely like 1.5 feet. And so I have the purple zipper by the yard that I carry in my shop. So before I cut it, what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to put the right side of the fabric, which is inside, against the side with the zipper teeth. So if this is where my opening is, I'm going to leave about 2 to 3 inches down here. So that way when I turn and top stitch it, it will catch and close that. And I can trim it later, but I'd rather have it a little bit longer than shorter. So I didn't even cut off my zipper yet from the zipper from the yard. I'm literally going to clip it all the way to the other edge first and then cut it. And in my brain, this has worked. So, like I said, hopefully it will come out as I intention. It probably would be way easier to use a pre-made zipper for this one. I just do not have one. I think my longest pre-made zipper is like 12 inches or so. And I'm worried that it wouldn't be a large enough opening for them to put their larger stuffed animals inside. All right, so now I've gotten down to the edge, or the end, and so I am going to cut it, leaving it longer as well. So the seam allowance is so large here that I think I can just so this is where it ends, or the original seam ends. So I'm pretty sure that I can put that zipper all the way onto that seam allowance. And I'm just going to adjust it for, I did not do that for the front end when I first started clipping, so I'm going to adjust that there too. And I didn't put my pull on yet either. I'm going to do that after. And I am going to switch to a zipper foot. It's going to change my seam allowance to smaller than the seam allowance for the rest, but it should be fine because it's the zipper. I guess it would be really cool too if you did a like a hidden zipper, because then it would blend right in and you wouldn't even know that there was a zipper. But again, I don't have any pre-made ones that are long enough. I know this is all like fluffed up, so it's kind of making it a little hard to see. And I'm using my the seam allowance guide as well, making sure that my zipper and fabric is pushed right up to it, because I want to make sure that I'm actually catching the fabric on the Minky and not just like the edges. This one's not so bad, but there are some Minkies that are like faux fur that are quite long, and the edges can be deceiving. You'll think you're catching it and you're really just catching the fur. And I'm not sure, to be honest, which side is the top or the bottom, so I'm going to check which way. Okay, yeah, so this part here is the top. So I am going to put my zipper pull on. I have, we call these the tri-heart pulls. They have the 3 hearts. It's our gunmetal color. It's almost black, so it matches this lilac tape that we have. So I'm just adding that on now. You could do it ahead of time. It just means that you have to move your pull out of the way. So sometimes I put them on ahead of time, sometimes after. This one you don't have to worry about so much if it's uneven, because we've sewed extra length in. So perfect. So now I have my pull on, and I'm going to open up my zipper because we're going to have to turn this right side out after. Yeah, I think if I make this again, I'm going to get one of those either reverse or hidden zippers, because that would be really cool too. But that's why I chose the purple one. So at least because you see it, it matches. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking this other side here and lining up the right side, which is on the inside, with the right side of the zipper, so my teeth are against it. And again, you can see where my seam originally went here. So I'm just starting a little bit further down. And now because I have my zipper pull there, I'm just gonna move it slightly out of the way, slide it down. I always move my pull when I'm clipping and when I'm sewing. I never used to move it when I'm clipping, and that's when I realized that if you don't, you can get a wavy zipper, like it will form a bubble there still. Not so noticeable with this project, but in a bag it would be noticeable. So this left side is definitely showing longer, so I don't know if it moved as I was clipping. So I'm gonna see as I sew along. Because this is zipper by the, oh, I just broke a clip. Because it's zipper by the yard, it doesn't matter so much, especially because we have where it's going to be hidden, so it will adjust itself. Another reason why I made sure I cut it a little bit longer than needed. And the way my zipper foot is, I'm starting from the bottom on this time. Coming up to where that zipper is, so I'm just moving it further down out of the way. So this will be the moment of truth. I'll show you where it's a little bit, I don't know if, because the seam allowance has, you know, as I was sewing the edges, if they changed a little bit, but you can see that this is longer than the other. But it happens past where it's already a seam. So this is all going to be hidden. So what I'm going to do now is turn it right side out. And I've been checking to make sure as I've been going along that everything, all my seams are caught. But now I'm just going to double check with the zipper, along the zipper, that they're caught. Especially on the side where the fur is thicker. Okay, so from the right side, if I zip this up, you can see, it goes right up into that seam. So I don't have any tabs on the end. So what I need to do is top stitch along this. So I'm gonna basically top stitch a box. Start on one side, go all the way down. When I get to this bottom here, I'm actually going to back stitch a few times over the zipper, because if I don't, technically that zipper pull, if it gets pulled the correct way, it won't just stop here, we'll keep going. But if I do that top stitch, it's going to prevent that. And the same thing at the top, where it is zipped into each other as well. So in order to do that though, I do need to open it up, and I'm going to switch back to my regular foot. Because whenever I top stitch, I always use my regular foot, unless it's vinyl that I have a Teflon foot, but this little circular opening, I use the inside edge as my guide for my top stitching. Okay, and the other thing is I'm gonna have to maneuver this to make sure that I am only sewing through the material. I'm not catching, you know, the back edges or sewing through layers of fabric. And honestly, I'm just starting on a random middle of the zipper spot. What's nice is that this thread is going to blend right into the fabric. So I am trying to keep my seam allowance fairly accurate, but if not, you're not really going to, if you're using a Minky, you're not going to really see the thread. So I just pivoted it while my needle was down. And this is a nylon zipper, so I sew over them. So I'm just going to back stitch a few times back and forth over the zipper because I'm at that bottom opening. And then again, I'm just pivoting it with the needle down to come back up this other opening, this other side. And this one's giving me a little bit more difficulty seeing, just because it is the longer Minky on this side. I'm getting towards that top where the zipper comes together. So I'm pulling it so that way my zipper is kind of on the same sides right now. And since I'm at the top, I'm gonna back stitch again over it a few times. And then that way I will prevent that zipper from coming off and I didn't have to add in stoppers or a tab or anything like that. Only tell them back at the beginning, only because that's where my threads are. And I'm just making sure that I am pulling them all and trimming them since it's in the zipper. Yeah, so if we look really close, like, you can kind of see a stitch line, but you don't even see the thread. You only really see the line because it's just the indent into the Minky. And on this side, you really don't notice anything at all because it's so furry. My only concern is hopefully the fur doesn't get stuck. Which it does not. So it's so big. It's a little bit hard to see. Let me stand up. So I don't know how much we'll be able to see. But yeah, so at least with this, the zipper blends in with the purple. And so this is our top portion here. It kind of forms a flat part. So once this is stuffed, we'll have the top and the bottom, and all this will be bulging out. And then on the inside, it's just all raw edges, but this doesn't fray, so I'm not going to do anything to the seams. I'm not going to bind them. I'm going to leave them like this. And oh yeah, Dala, this would make a great ottoman actually. It would bulge out. I don't know what the circumference is. It's quite large. I'm gonna stuff some extra like couch pillows and blankets, and I'll definitely take a picture and post it on social media because it opens up really far. It would make a great ottoman or beanbag chair. Like I said earlier, I think it would be great if you save fabric scraps and you wanted to use it for stuffing. And like I said, this will be filled with my niece's stuffed animals, and it wouldn't surprise me if they need another one because I have 3 nieces and now they have 2 of these, so I'm sure I'll be needing a third. But thank you guys so much for joining me again. I really appreciate it. I look forward to Tuesdays and everybody interacting. So next week I'm not quite sure what I'll be sewing up, but if you haven't already, if you could subscribe or give it a like. As I was telling Dalva earlier, I'm so close to being monetized. It's about a little less than 250 hours. So I really do appreciate you guys taking the time on Tuesday nights and spending it live with me. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll see you next week. Bye.